Hey, hi everybody. I'm Angela. Welcome to the first of my 20 free yoga classes that I am creating as a part of my 500-hour yoga teacher training. And I'm very excited about this. Also nervous because this is my first time ever posting a yoga class online, and people have been asking me to do it for about 5 years, so better late than never. A couple things to think about. These are all karma yoga classes or free yoga classes. It's a requirement of the training. And one thing that you can do with this, actually two things you can do with this. You can share the video to your own personal Instagram or Facebook page, which it'll be helpful to me. I'm not going to lie, because I want to get a little more into this. I'd like to get more comfortable with this, so hence the practice, but also as I get some more people who are enjoying the videos, this could be something that I can continue doing. But the other thing that will do is provide more free yoga to the world at large. And I am of the opinion that while all of us yoga teachers are professionals, and it's good that we're making money so we can make a livelihood as we do this, also yoga should be available to everyone. And the more we can utilize the internet, and these days we've all gotten a little bit better at doing that, I think, the more that will be possible. So you can be a part of that movement as well. So that would be my encouragement, my ask to you as a part of this. Otherwise, I'm just glad you're here, and I'm glad you're watching it, and glad you're participating. These classes will be beginner friendly, but they will also be challenging even if you are an experienced yogi. And I want to introduce you to a couple little friends that will make your class easier. And you can buy these on Amazon, but you can also create makeshift versions for yourself, which I'll tell you about. First thing is a yoga strap. If you Google yoga strap, you will find a variety of brands that you can purchase. This makes it easier for doing a lot of stretches, and you don't have to be as flexible as you think you need to be in order to do yoga. This is helpful. You can also use an old sweatshirt or a towel instead of a yoga strap, but if you have one of those nearby. And the others are yoga blocks. Again, you can search for that, buy them off Amazon. And these make the floor come up a little bit closer to you. If you do not have really long arms or legs, which I don't, these can be helpful for a lot of the poses where your feet and your hands are on the floor. There's just a variety of ways that we use them. If you don't have blocks, use large books. Remember dictionaries, you can use dictionaries. That will work great. So there's that. The other thing to keep in mind is today I have decided to film my class outside because I am extra, and I may regret that choice. You may hear interesting sounds because I live in Cleveland. There's a lot of people nearby. Just go with it. That's my plan. We'll see what happens. So, all right, what I want to do with these classes is incorporate some of the yoga philosophy that I've been learning through my training. And I'm not going to get too deep into it. My recommendation is think of it as an additional way of knowing yourself. If you're an experienced practitioner, it might be an opportunity to see your practice in a different light. But you don't have to subscribe to any one thing. In fact, I recommend you never subscribe to any one thing. There's no one way to explain the universe. But you might find some truths in it or some ideas in it that really speak to you. I hope you will. So the first 7 classes I will teach will be on the chakra system, which in a very simplified way of explaining it, so I'm already spending a lot of time doing it, so I'll shorten it. It's just energy centers inside the body that run the length of your spine, and the last one floats above your head. Ideally, when energy is flowing most freely through the body, then that's when we are most in contact with ourselves, and that's when we tend to be at our most actualized, our most powerful, and most able to get done whatever it is we need to get done. So that's why I love this system, is because if you understand these different parts of yourself, you can get an idea of like what's out of alignment, what can I do to bring myself into a better space with that particular part, and help you be your strongest and best version of yourself. So they, like I said, run the length of the spine, and the most basic one is built upon as you go further up. So today we'll start with the most central one, which is located at the very, very base of your spine. It's the root chakra, and it has to do with our sense of safety and centeredness. So, I mean, I feel like this is something that I want to come into more contact with every single day, but especially given that our world is constantly shifting and everything's constantly changing, I think more than ever, it's something that we need to be paying close attention to. Besides that, everything else builds off of it. So when it's out of alignment, it's not as if you're completely dysfunctional, but it can throw everything off slightly. And if you ever had a day, who hasn't had a day, where you just feel like everything's familiar but slightly askew, that's probably something to look into. So this will hopefully be a very foundational class and very helpful. It's the Sanskrit word for the root chakra is the Manipura chakra. I will not be using a ton of Sanskrit in these classes, but I do want to incorporate some of it so you can just hear some of the different ways that it is referenced. The color associated with it is red. I have brought one of my beautiful rainbow colored stones out, is that at the top of my mat, to remind me visually of where we are headed. If you want to, like if you're into crystals at all, a garnet is associated with the root chakra. If you have any slaying around, you can have that nearby or close to you. So what we will be focusing on in this class is a sense of groundedness, a sense of centeredness. We'll be doing a lot of poses where we're seated or where we're standing and focusing on what's in contact with the earth. And the reason I came outside is because we have this fantastic concrete slab outside of our house that are steps, and they're perfectly sized to teach a yoga class. And I enjoy having tangible reminders of what it is that I'm trying to keep in mind. And so for me, having something very solid underneath me speaks to me. So it might be something to think about, but you can do this anywhere. We'll be drawing our awareness in at various points. Another thing that I'm going to share with you, especially if you are a seasoned yogi, this is something that's not talked about a lot in class, but there is a secret to many yoga poses that if you keep it in your head, it will change your practice. If you've never heard of the bandhas before, bandha means lock, and there's 3 in particular that are very useful in a yoga practice. And one of them is strongly associated with the root chakra, and that is the mula bandha. So the root chakra is associated with this foundational bandha, and it's a very simple practice. It's one that most of us have engaged in at some point or another. If you've ever in your life needed to go to the bathroom really badly and you couldn't, and you tightened everything up to hold it in, you engage the mula bandha. That is what it feels like. If you've never experienced that sensation, I'm incredibly jealous. I experience it almost on the daily. But if you do know what that feels like, there will be various points through practice where I will encourage you to connect with your mula bandha and pull it in. What this does is it draws energy into your center of gravity, which is located in the pelvis. It is a tightening up of those muscles, and not just your sphincters, but also the muscles in your hips, and it draws energy into the center, which helps a lot with balancing postures. And if you ever found in various postures that you feel like you're about ready to fall to one side or the other, drawing in the mula bandha helps create a more centered space. So there may be various times where I will encourage you to consider doing that. It's not going to be like all the time, but it's something to think about and something to take into future practices that you may do. All right, I have talked enough. Now we will begin our yoga. So to start out, if you have blocks or an equivalent, same thing with your strap, set those nearby and come into an easy seated position. So I recommend cross-legged. Now here's where we can start using the blocks right away. If you have tightness in your hips, I recommend grab your block and sit on it. This elevates the hips. This is also great if you have any pain in your back. It helps naturally lengthen your spine. And bring your hands, let's just start out, just bring your hands to your legs. And feel your hands in contact with your body. You can keep your hands there and feel the contact. Or if it's comfortable for you, bring your hands to the floor, to the earth, which can create a grounding sensation. Start by bringing your awareness into your body. And if that is language that's unfamiliar to you, don't worry. At this instant, what I would encourage you to do is to notice every part of your body that's in contact with something solid. And if you're thinking, all right, I can only think of one thing, try to expand your understanding of the different parts of your body. When we're seated, we tend to just focus on our seat. But there's more parts of you that are in contact. So what are your hands in contact with, and how does it feel? What about your legs? What about your feet? If you're in a cross-legged position, you may feel the sides of your feet in contact with your mat. At any time, if you start to feel aching in your knees, you don't have to stay cross-legged. You can bring your feet in front of you and keep a little bend or a big bend in your knees. It doesn't matter. For an easy seated position, comfort is great. Go for comfort. So if you're doing that, you may feel your feet, soles of your feet in contact with the earth. Draw your awareness into what's in contact. So already, we're noticing what's supporting us. And just like in our day-to-day lives, your support doesn't feel like someone else's support. It's all different. That's very true of life. The secret is to know what supports you, what makes you feel safe. And to embrace that. All right. So a lot of times in these classes, I'm going to tell you, come into your body. So this is what the practice feels like. And I'll try to always guide you through that. But the sensation of noticing what your body is experiencing, every class we may focus on something different, but that's what it means to come into your body. And now we'll start to connect with the breath, which just means that you're noticing how it feels. And by the simple act of awareness of the breath, you automatically start to change it. It just happens. You may feel a deepening and a lengthening. I would encourage you to try and just breathe a little bit deeper, a little bit more fully. It doesn't have to be much. And imagine that you pull your breath from the very base of your spine, as if when you inhale, it comes from the base of your spine, fills up your belly, your chest, up to your collarbones, up to the throat, helps you find a little bit of extension and expanse. And then as you exhale, the breath leaves the way it came, down the throat, down the collarbones, down the chest, down the belly, and all the way to the very base of your spine. And as you reach the bottom of your exhale, you root further down into what you are in contact with, what's beneath you. So creating more solidity as you exhale. Keep that breath going. Strong and full. And I'll encourage you to breathe in and out through your nose, or in through your nose, out through your mouth, really whatever speaks to you. If you are experiencing allergy season like we are in Ohio, breathing in through the nose is not a lot of fun right now, so find a comfortable breath. And close your eyes if you've not already, if it's comfortable for you. And visualize the color red. You can just imagine an expanse of red behind your eyes, or I like to visualize, this speaks to you, a sphere of light that's glowing the color red. Whatever visualization pops into your head, just keep your thoughts and your inner focus there for a few more breaths in and out. And if you're wondering, where's the movement? It's coming. And remember, yoga is not just about how fast we can move, it's about what we can do for the whole self. Brain, heart, breath, spirit, and yes, the body. Start to come back into your body by making just a few little movements, maybe wiggling fingers and wiggling toes. Gently rocking your head from side to side, or doing some circles with your neck a few times. Then come back to center. You can keep your block beneath your hips if you want to. I'm going to release my block. If at any time you feel like you can't get your balance, or you're ready to set the block aside or want to, just go ahead and take what you need for your practice. And you can also keep your legs in front of you. You don't have to have cross-legged. I'm going to stick with the cross-legged for right now. As you inhale, sweep your hands up to the sky. Reach your fingertips and engage your entire arms, but keep your shoulders relaxed away from your ears. Take one more deep inhale, find extension. As you exhale, plant your right hand to the earth beside your hip, and then take a bend to the right, keeping both of your hips planted. So we're rooting through the hips here, and then imagine from that rooted space, you're finding an extension all the way to your left fingertips, which are either reaching to the sky or towards the side. A full contact from your hips all the way to your fingertips. As you inhale, come back to center, reach both hands to the sky. As you exhale, plant your left hand, and same thing, take a bend to the left, reaching your right fingertips either up to the sky or to the side. And keep breathing here, deep breaths. We're not going to be moving too fast today, so try to keep your breath as deep as you can. As you inhale, come back to center, reach both hands up to the sky, lengthen. As you exhale, take a twist to the right. Allow your right hand to rest behind your hip and your left hand to rest on your leg. Again, your legs can still be straight here. You may feel that you have not quite as wide of a base if your legs are straight, so just keep yourself rooted through your hands. As you inhale, extend, come back to center, reach your hands to the sky. Exhale, take your twist to the left, left hand behind your hip, right hand to your leg. With every inhale, lengthen your spine, stack your shoulders over your hips. A lot of times people lean back in a twist. You want to keep yourself extended straight up from your hips, which will also increase that sense of rooting down. So once again, you're rooted through your hips, and then the extension comes from that place and up. You can look over your back shoulder if it feels good. Okay, as you inhale, come back to center and bring your hands to your legs. As you exhale, root down into your mat. As you inhale, stretch your belly forward to find a seated cow pose. As you do so, bring your shoulders back, heart forward, You can look up if your neck feels okay with it. And as you exhale, round your spine, hunch your shoulders forward. You're gonna rock your pelvis a little bit forward for a seated cat pose. Tuck everything into center. Inhale, find your cow pose one more time. Stretch forward, lengthen and lift. Exhale, round your spine for cat pose. Tuck everything in. Take a few more of these with your own breath. Allowing your breath to enhance the motion. Right after your next cat pose and exhale, come back to center. Stack your shoulders over your hips and do a few circles with your rib cage over your legs. Notice as you do so that your hips may rock around and move around. Just focus in on that sensation. And then pause and go the opposite way. All right, come back to your seated position. Bring your hands in front of you, roll forward, and find a tabletop position. Hands and knees. Very simple. Hands underneath your shoulders, knees under your hips, trying to find as flat of as much flatness in your back as you can. Our backs are not designed to be flat, so it's never perfectly flat. But in order to create that, lengthen your spine, draw the muscles in your abs in a little bit. And this is an opportunity to come into contact with Mula Bandha and draw it in. And as you do so, notice what that does for the energy along your spine, especially if you're also tucking in your abs. There's a lock there as well. Just a little preview of coming attractions. We'll talk about that in the future. Take a moment and imagine your energy drawing inward. So pulling in to the center and then extending along the length of your spine. Keep your breath flowing here. Then extend your right foot behind you, grounding the ball of your foot into the earth. Shift your heel back a little bit and hold there. And you may feel a stretch in the back of your leg. A lot of people come to yoga being like, I want to stretch more. We will have some good stretching. This is an opportunity to feel an extension in the back of your leg where we tend to be pretty tight. Just about all of us are. And then float your foot away from the earth. So once again, come into contact with the muscles in your core. Tighten them up. I'm just trying to find a little bit of balancing here, and that will help. You can stay right here. You don't have to go any further, but if you'd like to find more balance, reach your left fingertips forward. Thumb is pointing up and fingertips are reaching straight forward. Gaze is down, long spine. Take an inhale. Exhale, crunch your elbow and knee together underneath you and round your spine like we did in our cat pose when we were seated earlier. Then inhale, extend your foot and fingertips away from each other. Exhale, crunch in. Inhale, extend. Exhale, crunch in. Inhale, extend. Then as you exhale, drop your knee to the earth and drop your hand to the earth. Shift your hips from side to side. And come back to your tabletop position. Extend your left leg behind you. Ground the ball of your foot down. Shift your heel towards the back edge of your mat. Feel the extension and activation in the muscles in the back of your leg. And then float your left foot away. Draw in your core. Allow your hips to continue to point down towards the mat. So we're not opening to the side. We want to be pointing straight down. Reach your right fingertips forward. And take a deep inhale, lengthen. Exhale, crunch in. Inhale, extend. Exhale, crunch in. One more time, inhale, reach and lengthen. Exhale, crunch. As you inhale, stretch your toes and fingertips away from each other. Plant your hand, plant your knee. Come back to your tabletop. Shift your hips from side to side. Then bring your big toes to touch. Separate your knees any amount. Now we're going to take a child's pose. If you're familiar with child's pose and you go really deep, go as deep as you'd like to. If you're new to child's pose, separate your knees just a little bit Start to shift your hips back towards your heels. Feel free to grab a block or book or whatever you got and set it on top of your heels, and then allow your hips to rest against the block. Because a lot of times with tightness in the hips end up just kind of hovering above the heels. It's not super comfortable. It's not fantastic for the stretch to be in pain. So you have that option. Then rest your forehead down in the direction of the earth, and it may rest against your mat, it may not. You can also grab a block and rest it underneath your head. And then I'll encourage you to stretch your fingertips forward to stretch out your shoulders. Hands can be shoulders width or wider. You don't have to fully extend. You can keep them loose and rest your forearms against the earth. This is child's pose. Focus your awareness into that space at the base of the spine one more time. Hold here. And just like we did when we were breathing at the beginning of practice, imagine the breath comes from that space at the base of your spine and floats its way up slowly. So very full breaths. And then as you exhale, the breath flows the way it came. Maybe as you exhale, you might find a little more looseness, a little more shifting back of your hips towards your heels. You might not. You just visualize it. A couple more breaths here in child's pose. As you inhale, start to make your way back up to hands and knees. Tabletop position. Draw your knees back underneath your hips. All right, we're going to do our first downward facing dog. Yay. Bring your hands a handprint closer towards the front edge of your mat so they start to come out in front of your shoulders. Tuck your toes. Press into your tucked toes. Press into your hands. Ooh, here we go. Lift your knees off the mat. Lift your hips high. Shift your heels back. Press into your hands. Drop the crown of your head down in the direction of the earth. And look at that, you're in downward facing dog. Now, your hands can be shoulders width or wider, especially if you have tension in your shoulders. Same with your feet, they can be hips width or wider. Your heels do not have to touch the earth. The more you stretch and lengthen, the more you find that happens. But it's totally cool for them not to. It's also fine to have a bend in your knees if you're feeling really tense in the back of your legs. If this is your first down dog ever, and you're like, what the heck is going on? Feel free to take a generous bend in your knees. That's cool. Notice how that changes things. In fact, I'd encourage you, if you're very familiar with down dog, it'd still be fun to bend your knees and press your belly back towards your thighs. Notice what that does for your spine. Breathe into that length. And then, if you can, start to straighten your knees. You can keep them bent. Another thing you can do, especially if you're new to down dog, is grab your blocks, bring them underneath your hands. Instead of having your hands in contact with the mat, you can have hands in contact with the blocks. I love how that feels. And I do down dog many times, every single day. It's a good feeling. All right, so in your down dog, you can stay still. You can bend one knee and then the other, walking out your dog. What I love about down dog is, first of all, since we're talking about the chakras, it activates every single one of them. So you are energized from the base of your spine to something floating above the crown of your head. It's super great. But also, I like to think of down dog as a chance to reset the body. When we teach really fast-paced classes, we often pause in the downward-facing dog in between powerful flows. So it's an opportunity to feel your breath and to feel your body. So this is another chance. Notice what your body's experiencing. Where do you feel this? It may not even feel super great. You can always come out of down dog and take tabletop. You don't have to stay in it. We won't be here much longer, I promise. Just a couple more breaths. All right, as you inhale, I'm going to shift forward to a plank pose. Don't freak out. You do not have to stay in full plank. you can drop to your knees, which is a supported plank. So notice, whether I'm on my knees or whether I'm off my knees, hips are about the same. Yeah. So, hips are always in line with the shoulders. I often see this when people come to their knees taking tabletop. You know, if you need to do that, that's fine. But plank pose is not like that. Hips are low, hips are down. Hold here. Notice what's in contact with mat. Keep yourself rooted. Keep your gaze down. Keep your breath strong. Take one more inhale in your plank pose. And then as you exhale, drop to your knees if you are not already dropped, and lower all the way to your belly. Draw your elbows underneath your shoulders. Press into your forearms. Reach your fingertips forward. Lift your heart. This is Sphinx pose. I feel like it kind of describes itself. You can picture a sphinx. Bring yourself into a similar position. Elbows are tightly brought in towards your body. Feet are extended straight behind you. All 10 toenails pressed into the earth, which helps activate the muscles in the backs of your legs. And then as you do so, press your hip points into the earth. And again, we're connecting with that part of the body, the base of the spine, and that's the part that's really rooted here. So focus on that sensation of grounding through the hip points, and then from that point, lift your belly, lift your heart, and bring your heart forward. Gaze can be forward, or you can gaze down towards your hands, especially if there's any pinching in the back of your neck. Hold here. Once again, every breath a chance to root down. Notice the parts of your body that are in contact with what's beneath you. Lower yourself all the way down to your belly. Plant your hands into your mat. As you inhale, shift up to your tabletop position. Tuck your toes. And as you take a deep exhale, lift your hips to the sky and find your downward facing dog. As you inhale, lift your heels, bend your knees. Exhale and walk your feet up to the front of your mat. Forward fold. So feet are underneath hips, or they can be a little wider. So forward fold sounds super simple, but the way that our bodies tend to be, it's a complicated pose. You may be feeling a lot in the backs of your legs. You may be feeling a lot in your spine, especially a curve. You can find a deep curve in the spine as we forward fold. You may take your blocks and bring them underneath your hands on any setting and allow yourself support so you don't have to touch your toes, you don't have to touch the earth. Another thing you can do to support yourself is bend your knees, even to a point where your belly rests against your thighs. There's support to be found there as well. And if you're feeling flexy and bendy today, you may not need to do any of those things. You can bring your hands to the earth. A little straightness to your legs. Watch hyperextension in your knees. Keep a tiny bend in your knees. And if you feel that you can come into contact with the earth and your legs are mostly straight, then activate the muscles in your upper legs. And send a little weight into the balls of your feet, which will increase the flexibility or the stretch, which will continue the process of increasing your flexibility. On your next inhale, bring your hands up to your thighs or to your shins and lengthen the crown of your head forward. If your elbows are bent, draw them against the sides of your body. Imagine extending your spine so that the crown of your head is shooting straight forward, half lift. Take one more inhale here. As you exhale, come back to your forward fold. And then this time as you inhale, press through your feet. We're going to slowly rise up to standing. As you do so, keep your spine as long as you can, but take it slow, especially since we've been forward for a while. Reach your fingertips up to the sky press your palms together above your head, and then bring your hands to heart center for standing mountain pose. And take a moment. Slow down, still down. Root through your feet. So feet are the only thing in contact with the mat here. It's a very neutral position. You can release your hands down beside you and flip your palms forward as a more traditional standing mountain pose. Sanskrit word for mountain pose, Tadasana. Visualize yourself rooted firmly into the earth. Solid and immovable. Notice all four corners of your feet in contact with the earth. Now they should be about hips width. Toes pointing straight forward. Legs, both calves and thighs pointing straight forward. Maybe wiggling your toes. Notice the arches of your feet. And then relax your toes down to the ground, but keep that focus on the arches. Keep the arches a little bit activated, even as the toes relax down. And then from the rootedness in the lower body, inhale and lift the upper body, basically. Imagine expanse in your spine. Imagine the crown of your head lifting, which does not mean you're lifting your head up to the sky. It just means you're focusing on an expanse from the top of your head up. So your face still faces straight forward. A couple more breaths just like this. This may be a moment to adopt a mantra or a statement of truth for yourself. I just realized you can only see half of me. Well, that's just going to be how it is. That's fun. Okay. Mantra or statement of truth for yourself. Maybe I am grounded, or I am safe, or I am secure. All right. Take one more inhale here. As you exhale, fold forward, drop your hands back down to the earth. Grab one block, bring it in front of you to the highest setting, so vertical setting. Separate your feet wide. You can grab onto your block here if you'd like to give yourself some support. And we're going to take it into a squat, which can be a very uncomfortable pose because there's a lot of opening. So we're going to use the block as a help with this. I'll show you how. So feet are wide, toes are pointing to angles. Start to bend your knees and sink your hips low. So for many of us, this is as far as we can go, and that's fine. That's why I definitely recommend that you have support, because this is a lot to hold. It's strengthening. So you can hold right here, and we're going to be here for a little bit. So if you need to come out of it, you can always fold forward, or you can come to standing. So depending on the openness that you have in your hips, you may start to sink your hips lower. So a full squat is hips are starting to drop down between your heels. Your block can be helpful in this pose because you can sit on it. And you can keep it on the high setting, which will lift your hips higher. You can drop it to one of the lower settings. This is feeling nice. I hope this feels good for you. It may be challenging though, because inner legs are opening. In fact, if you're sinking all the way down, if you want to get even more deeply into it, bring your elbows inside your knees, bring your hands to heart center, and then the elbows against the knees may create a little more tension and a little more opening. So yeah, a lot's opening here. There's another part of the body that gets tense. And if you, and this is where it starts to get into the energy work, if you have been feeling ungrounded, unsafe lately, you may, surprise, surprise, notice that you are having tension in the hips and in the legs. That energy center does affect the body. Something to keep in mind. And in the ways that our body can inform us of what's going on, if you notice that those two things do coincide often, may start to notice when you feel physical sensations in the hips and legs, and know that this might be something to look into. Just a thought. Okay. So not much longer here. If you're on the block and you want to set the block aside and allow your hips to hover, if you're a big fan of full squat, you can do so. Just take a couple more inhales and exhales here. All right, wherever you're coming from, plant your hands either to the mat or to a block and start to fold forward, lifting your hips high and working your feet underneath your hips. Again, blocks can be under your hands or you can have your hands to the earth. Keep your right foot planted. Step your left foot behind to start to come to a low lunge. You can grab blocks and bring them underneath your hands, and then drop your back knee down. Okay, so low lunge. You can have your back thigh perpendicular with the earth, so your legs can make zigzag positions. If you're new to low lunge, that's probably a good place to start. If you want to feel a little more stretch in your left thigh, scoot your toes closer towards the back edge of your mat so you start to take more of a lunge in your left thigh. Keep your spine long. I really recommend blocks here. Very few of us have long enough arms that they can plant their hands to the earth without feeling like they're collapsing on top of their leg. So allow your blocks to give you extension. Lift the crown of your head a little bit up to the sky. Your front knee goes over your front ankle, no further. But then once it's there, find a strong bend. This may be also a good opportunity, draw in your Mula Bandha. Because as you find even these lunges, if you take your hands off the earth, and you can experiment with this, taking your hands off the earth, maybe hands to heart center, or even reaching your hands to the sky, notice how you have to activate the muscles more to hold yourself into balance. We don't think of this as a balancing pose, but it is. And the more you draw energy into the center of your pelvis, the center of gravity, the more you're going to find inner strength to hold yourself in balancing poses. And I feel it very strongly when we find lunges or one of the warriors, like Warrior 1 or Warrior 2, if you're familiar with those. Drawing energy into the center is one of the best ways to find the balance. There's also some other ways to change them up, which we will learn at some point in these 20 classes. Preview of coming attractions. All right. So if you were lifted and playing around with the balance, bring your hands back down to frame your front foot. Keep your left hand planted to your mat or to your block. And as you inhale, reach your right hand up to the sky to take a twist. So try to twist from above your hips. Let every inhale help you find space and length. Maybe with the exhale, you find just a little more twist. A couple more breaths here. As you inhale, come back to center. Plant your hands to your blocks. Start to extend your right leg straight in front of you. Grab your blocks and work your hands closer towards your back knee. As you straighten your right leg, pop the ball of your foot off the mat so your heel's resting against the mat. Keep your hands planted on any setting of the blocks. It can be high, medium, low. You may not need the blocks. You can set them aside if you don't. We're finding half split. Keep your right leg extended with a tiny bend in it. Bring your hips just about directly over your left knee. And then as you inhale, lengthen your spine. As you exhale, you may try folding forward a little bit over your front leg. Keep your spine long. So I know we have potential for people of a variety of experience with yoga taking this class. This is half split. If you are working a full split, you want to practice full split, you can extend your left leg straight behind you, start dropping your hips low towards the earth. You can keep your hands on blocks to keep yourself lifted as you are working the extension in your legs over time. start to make your way back to your low lunge. Frame your foot with your hands. Tuck your back toes. Step to the front of your mat. Find a forward fold. Keep your blocks nearby. As you inhale, bring hands to your shins or thighs. Lengthen the crown of your head forward for half lift. And exhale, fold. All right, same thing, left side. Step your right foot behind. Bring your hands to your blocks. Frame your front foot. Then drop your back knee gently down. If you ever have any knee pain as you're resting your knee against the mat, if you have a pillow or a blanket, you can just soften underneath your knee. Always an option. All right, start out finding your lunge. Remember, your thigh can be perpendicular with the earth, or you can reach your toes further back and find more of a stretch in the front of your thigh. Lengthen your spine. If you played around with the balance in your low lunge last time, you might try doing it again. Draw in your Mula Bandha. Tighten energy into the center of your body, and then maybe lift up and bring your hands to heart center. Or even reach your hands to the sky. Softness in your gaze, wherever you are. All right, we'll meet up with hands planted, back to your blocks. Keep your right hand rooted down. As you inhale, sweep your left hand to the sky for a twist. Engagement from your right hand to the fingertips of your left hand. Breathe here. One more inhale. Exhale. Reach your hands back to your blocks. Start to extend your left leg straight. As you do so, shift your hips back and bring your hands closer in towards your back knee, starting to find your half split. Come onto the heel of your left foot. Keep your left leg long. Lift the crown of your head. Inhale, extend your spine. Exhale, stay, or take a forward fold, any amount. Keeping your spine extended as you do. Notice what you experience in the back of your left leg for half split. If you are working full split, you can lift yourself up a little bit, extend your right leg straighter behind you, or full all the way down. Hips can come all the way down to the earth. Or if you're working the flexibility, the blocks are very helpful for this because you can keep your hands on them and support yourself with your hands as you're gently guiding your body into deeper and deeper stretch. Slowly come back to center. And this time, I'm going to meet the knees together. So coming to a kneeling position. Set your blocks aside. And start with just a very basic kneeling position. And from here, grab one block. Set it on top of your heels. Bring your hands to heart center. And start to set yourself on top of your block. This is a variation of hero's pose. Keeps the hips a little bit elevated. You can always take a pillow or a blanket and put it on top of the block, or not use the block and just use the pillow or a blanket for a little more softness. And also bring your hands to your legs. In fact, I recommend going ahead and doing that because we're focusing on rooting. Anytime you can bring your hands in contact either with the body or with the earth, it's a good opportunity to feel rootedness in the hands. Since we walk on our feet, finding rootedness in the hands is a nice change. All right, so to go deeper into your hero's pose, you can start by just setting your block to the side, but keep it nearby. because I'm going to show you a few more deeper variations that will use the block. You can set your hips back onto your heels, lengthen your spine. To go deeper, grab your block. Lift yourself up off your heels a little bit and then separate your heels and your knees. Bring your block between your heels. On any setting, I think it feels best to be on the medium setting or on the low setting. It's up to you. I'm going to do low. All right, bring your block between your heels, close your heels around it, and then set yourself down. So notice what you're already starting to do for your hips as you separate them wide and then sit your heels down. It's kind of like our squat. The more we find openness in the hips, the more we start to create that sense of stretching. So just like with the body, there's two parts to the energy centers. We want to strengthen, but we also want to loosen. You want to do both at the same time, and you want to do approximately about the same amount. Most of us are very good at the strengthening. We struggle with the stretching. And if you're like me, when you come into the stretching, that's when you realize how very much more you need to be doing stretching. So try in these practices to take opportunities to do both. Strengthening the legs, but also loosening them up so that energy is not just pulling inward, it's also releasing. Because we want a flow of energy, not a build-up. All right, if you would like to go deeper, I need a little more space, so I'm going to move. If you'd like to go deeper, make sure you've got about half of your mat behind you. You can start to lean back onto your hands, any amount. You can keep the block under your hips as you lean back. So you'll notice I'm just going to a place where my hands are on the mat and leaning back. This is as far as I go with the knees that I have. But if it feels good for you, you can come onto your forearms, lean back even more. You can take your block away from between your heels and sit your hips all the way down between your heels. And some people can lay all the way back, just completely reclined. What I will say is if you want to go for it, gently guide yourself down. If you start to feel pain in your knees or pinching in your back, come back up a little bit and take it to a point where you do not feel those things and then hold there. And we'll hold here for about 4 or 5 more inhales and exhales. Come out of the pose. If you're reclined, guide yourself back up with your hands. Lift yourself off of your heels. If you had your block between your heels, set it aside. Swing your legs around. Come to a seated position for just a moment. And then make your way to recline on your back. And once you get there, hug your right knee in towards your chest and extend your left leg long. Hug your knee in close towards you, keeping your fingers interlaced on top of your shin. And take an inhale here. As you exhale, use your left hand to guide your knee across your body and down to take a twist. And if you'd like, you can bring your right arm out to a T, if that feels comfortable. You can also rest your hand against the side of your stomach. You also can look over to the right if your neck feels okay with it. As you inhale, bring your knee back to center. As you exhale, switch the position of your legs so your left knee comes in, your right leg runs long. And take an inhale here. As you exhale, use your right hand to guide your knee across your body and down for a twist. Left arm can come out to a T or rest it against your body. Or maybe turn to look to the left. Keep your shoulders opening as much as possible. Imagine your belly turning towards the sky or the ceiling. As you inhale, come back to center. And plant both of your feet into the mat. Bend your knees and point them towards the sky. Bring the inside edges of your feet to touch. Drop your knees towards the earth. Allow the soles of your feet to touch each other for reclined bound angle pose or Supta Baddha Konasana. Once again, send your awareness into the base of your spine as you find space and openness here. And visualize sending the breath from that most rooted place all the way up as you inhale. And then as you exhale, sending the breath all the way down the way it came. And your hands can rest against your legs or hip points if you'd like to come in contact with the space around your root chakra. Or bring your hands to the earth with palms flipped down to focus on grounding into what's supporting you. Inhale, close your knees and plant your feet back into the earth. Start to extend your legs straight out and relax them down to the mat. Bring your heels towards the corners of your mat and flop your toes open towards the earth. Relax your arms down, again to the earth, and maybe rotate your palms down if you'd like to continue focusing on the sensation of grounding. Relax your muscles into what's supporting you. Maybe take a moment, do a scan, and once again, come into awareness of everything that's in contact right now with the mat beneath. Maybe you visualize all the support systems that are under your mat. The floor, the foundations of your space, the ground beneath, the layers of earth beneath that, and the very core of the earth itself. So much that is supporting you. So stay here in a rested position. If you're the sort of person who needs to look at the screen and know what I'm doing at all times, I am here for it. I understand. I'm going to sit up, but stay in your rested position for about 2 more minutes, not long. Close your eyes if it's comfortable for you, and breathe at a natural pace. And I'll let you know when it's time to wake, and I'll close out our practice with you. take a deep inhale through your nose. Pull it from the base of your spine all the way up. Open your mouth and sigh the exhale out exactly the way that it came. And then as you inhale again, start to move your fingers and your toes. Start to circle your ankles and your wrists. You stretch your arms and your legs in any way that feels good as you wake up. Hug your knees in towards you. Roll off to one side and pause there just for a moment. And then guide yourself up with your hands, taking a seated position of your choosing at the top of your mat. Bring your hands to heart center. And take a moment, reconnect with the mantra or the truth statement of I am safe or I am grounded, or whatever spoke to you in practice. And I hope that that might be a feeling that you have a little bit more of a sense of by the time we're done. Know that this practice is here for you. If you ever want it, if you ever need it, the poses are always available. And bring thumb knuckles to the forehead center, the center of intuition, which we will get to in a few weeks. The light in me recognizes, honors, and bows to the light in every single one of you who has joined in this practice today. So we close out yoga practices by saying namaste, and it basically means just that. My light recognizes your light. So if you'd like to join me, let us bow to one another and say namaste. I wish I could see your faces. I hope you had a good practice. All right, so 1 of 19 is complete. Hope it was great for you. Next video will be posted next Friday, and we will be talking about the next chakra up, the sacral chakra, center of creativity, and it'll be awesome. So I hope to see you then. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm Angela, and I will see you soon. Bye.